Damn it, I'm going to be late again. Clara tossed the towel onto the counter, quickly dried her hands and glanced at the clock. 30 minutes until the train, but the station wasn't close, and her legs were already aching after a long shift. How tired I am of all this, she thought. She dreamed of leaving this small town where every day blended into the last, a town where everyone knew everyone and nothing ever changed. Her whole world revolved around the restaurant where she had worked as a waitress for the past 5 years. The same clients, the same conversations. The restaurant belonged to Mr. Davies, a man with a firm grip. For him, the main thing was order and profit. Customers were never in short supply. Workers from nearby workshops came for lunch, and local intellectuals arrived in the evening. But in Clara's life, everything remained stagnant. She lived alone. No family. Rare phone calls with her mother only added fuel to the fire. Leave, start a new life, break free from the routine. Today she was finishing her shift early. The plan was simple: catch the train and leave for the neighboring city for a job interview. They promised something better there, a job in a big restaurant, a prospect for career growth, a chance that comes once in a lifetime. "Clara, are you absolutely sure?" asked her friend Sarah, who also worked at the restaurant, delivering an order to the kitchen. "It's not often someone gets called up for a promotion." "I'm sure, Sarah," Clara replied curtly, tying her apron. "I have to change something. I'm stuck here like in a swamp. There are more opportunities in the city." "Well, just be careful. Text me when you get there." Clara nodded, put on her jacket, and practically ran out of the restaurant, past familiar streets, past window displays, where everything looked the same as a year ago. Impatience boiled inside her. She knew that if she didn't leave now, she would be stuck here again in this endless cycle of shifts and short nights. "Clara, why the rush?" She heard a familiar voice that made her stop. Mr. Davies was standing at the entrance of the restaurant, a phone in his hand. "To the station, Mr. Davies. The train is in half an hour." "All right, good luck." He was clearly busy, distracted by the call, and waved his hand. She ran on, but her thoughts wouldn't let her go. If only I could just leave and forget all this, forget the monotony. Clara ran faster, quickening her pace with every turn. She felt that she wasn't just rushing to the station, but fleeing from her old life, and that made it a little easier. But time was relentlessly pressing. "Leo, stop!" a woman shouted, running down the street. Clara quickly looked around and saw a boy on a bicycle who had darted into the road. He wasn't looking around, and a car was approaching too quickly. "God, not now," flashed through her mind. Without a second thought, Clara rushed towards the boy. She grabbed his hand and at the last moment yanked him off the road. The car sped past, narrowly avoiding a collision. The boy was shaking, his eyes were full of fear. Clara fell to her knees next to him, her heart pounding wildly. "What are you doing?" she gasped, trying to catch her breath. "How can you run out into the road like that?" The boy was sobbing, and a second later Clara realized who it was. Leo, the son of Mr. Davies, the restaurant owner. She knew him well. He often came to the restaurant with his father after school. He wiped his nose on his sleeve and looked at her with huge eyes. I didn't mean to," he whimpered. "Dad doesn't let me ride alone, but I wanted to get home early." Clara helped him up and put the bicycle on the sidewalk. "It's all right." "Don't worry," she said, trying to calm the boy. "Just don't do that again, okay? Who knows what might have happened?" Leo nodded, still sobbing. Clara looked at her watch. The train had already left. Her only chance to leave was gone. A wave of disappointment rose inside her, but she quickly suppressed it. The train can wait. The main thing is that the boy is okay. "Come on, I'll walk you home," Clara said, taking the boy's hand. "Your dad is probably worried." Leo nodded silently, and they walked down the street towards the restaurant. Clara tried not to think about how her plans had gone awry again. There was so much unknown ahead, and she didn't have the strength to deal with it right now. As they approached the restaurant, the door swung open, and Mr. Davies appeared on the threshold, his face contorted with fear and relief. "Leo!" He rushed to his son, hugged him, and held him tightly. "Where have you been? What happened?" I went riding," the boy mumbled, hanging his head. "But Clara saved me. I almost got hit by a car." Mr. Davies abruptly looked up at Clara. How did this happen? His voice was stern, but gratitude was in his eyes. He never goes far from home. Clara took a deep breath. I was on my way to the station and saw Leo run into the road. The car was heading right for him. I barely managed to grab him. Everything is fine, but... She looked at Leo, who had buried his face in his father's coat again. He shouldn't be out alone at this hour. Mr. Davies was silent for a second, processing what he heard. He was a strict and demanding man, both in business and with his family, but now all he seemed to think about was that his son was safe and sound. "Thank you, Clara," he finally uttered with a heavy sigh. "You saved my son. I don't even know how to repay you." Clara nodded, but her heart was heavy. She knew the train was gone, and her dream of a new life had crumbled like sand through her fingers. "I'm glad everything is all right," she said quietly. "But I need to go now. I missed my train." Mr. Davies frowned. "You were leaving?" "Why?" Clara sighed slightly. She hadn't planned on telling him about her plans, but circumstances made it pointless to hide it. "I wanted to leave for another city, find a job, maybe a new life. I'm stuck here." She involuntarily shrugged. "I thought there would be more opportunities there." "Leave Leo in the restaurant, let him rest," Mr. Davies suddenly said. "And you, come inside for a minute. Let's talk." Clara froze. The invitation caught her off guard. She hesitated whether to go or not, but curiosity won out. After all, the train was gone. Nothing to lose. She nodded, and they entered the restaurant together. Clara stepped inside and immediately felt the familiar warmth of the room, the smell of food mixed with fresh coffee. Despite the tension, this place always calmed her. She had worked here for years and knew every corner. Now, with no customers, silence reigned, which only intensified her sense of anxiety. Mr. Davies led her into the small office where he usually managed the restaurant's affairs. Closing the door behind him, he sat down at his desk and looked at her with a serious expression. "So, you wanted to leave," he began, folding his hands in front of him. "And you didn't even tell anyone?" "Why?" Clara lowered her eyes. She wasn't used to such conversations and felt a little awkward, but so many emotions were bubbling inside that she couldn't keep silent. "Mr. Davies, I needed a change. I'm stuck here." She looked him straight in the eye. "Every day is the same work, home, work again. I wanted something new. I wanted to try myself somewhere else." He listened carefully, without interrupting. Then he sighed and nodded. "I understand. The restaurant business is hard work. But Clara, why didn't you talk to me sooner? I could have offered something. You know, it's important to me that my employees feel like part of the family. You saved my son today. If it weren't for you, I don't even want to think about what might have happened. That's why I'm ready to make you an offer." Clara looked at him warily. "What offer?" Mr. Davies leaned back in his chair and looked at her thoughtfully. "I've been looking for someone reliable for a long time, for a new position as the restaurant manager. Someone who can not only oversee order, but also help me make decisions. And I think you could handle this job. You've been here a long time, you know the restaurant like the back of your hand. And you deserve more." Clara couldn't believe her ears. This was unexpected. She had come here thinking she had lost all chances for change. Now, a completely different opportunity was opening up before her. "Manager?" she asked incredulously. "But I'm just a waitress. I don't have experience managing people." Mr. Davies smiled. "You don't have experience, but you have the most important thing. You know this restaurant from the inside, and you know how to work with people. I need someone like you. Think about it. The position is solid, the salary is decent, and you don't have to leave anywhere. You'll stay here, in your environment, but with new opportunities." Clara was silent. Hundreds of thoughts raced through her head. She didn't know what to say. This was a chance she hadn't even considered. "I'm not asking you to answer right now," Mr. Davies continued. "Go home, think about it. You can come in tomorrow and tell me what you decided. And for now, thank you again for Leo." Clara stood up, slightly bewildered but grateful. She nodded, speechless, and left the office. Clara left Mr. Davies' office, her mind swirling with thoughts. Everything had happened so fast that she hadn't quite managed to grasp what had just occurred. Manager. Was this the change she had dreamed of, or not quite what she needed? She slowly walked through the empty restaurant hall, heading for the exit. Thoughts of the next day, the missed train, and the unexpected offer wouldn't leave her alone. Stepping outside, she took a deep breath of the cool evening air. The sky was darkening, and the town was settling into its usual evening quiet. Clara turned and looked at the illuminated restaurant building. It suddenly didn't seem as small and dull as before. Maybe I should stay? The thought flashed through her mind, but she instantly dismissed it. No, I wanted to leave. As she walked home, a feeling of uncertainty raged inside her. On one hand, this was a chance she hadn't even considered, but she had already decided to start a new life. The choice seemed simple, but choosing was anything but easy. Reaching her apartment, Clara wearily tossed off her jacket and collapsed onto the sofa. The silence of her apartment weighed on her. She recalled her conversation with Sarah that morning. It's not often someone gets called up for a promotion. Her friend was right, but back then she didn't know what offer awaited Clara. Her mobile phone vibrated on the table. Clara reached for it and looked at the screen. A message from Sarah. "So how are you? Did you catch the train? Text me when you get there." Clara sighed and typed a short reply. "Didn't go. Everything changed. I'll tell you later." She leaned back and closed her eyes. What should I do, she thought, the words of Mr. Davies circling in her head. The next morning, Clara woke up with a heavy feeling. Today she had to make a decision, go to work and talk to Mr. Davies, or continue looking for ways to start a new life outside of this town. Two feelings wrestled inside her, the desire for change and the fear of missing a good opportunity. "I'll go to work after all. I'll talk to him," she told herself, getting out of bed. Soon dressed, Clara was once again at the restaurant's entrance. The street was quiet. The morning sun slowly illuminated the building's facade. Inside the restaurant, she noticed Mr. Davies was already in his office, immersed in paperwork. Clara took a deep breath and walked inside. "Good morning," she said, approaching his office. Mr. Davies looked up and smiled slightly when he saw her. "Hello, Clara. Have you made a decision?" Clara sat opposite him, folding her hands in her lap. "Yes, I've thought about everything, and I think there's sense in trying. I accept the offer." He nodded, apparently expecting this answer. "Excellent. You won't regret it. We'll start working on new projects tomorrow. I'll get you up to speed. You have a lot of work ahead of you, but I'm confident you can handle it. Thank you again for everything." Clara felt a wave of relief. She was still not entirely sure, but something clicked inside her. Maybe things aren't so bad after all. She was staying in the city, but now she had the opportunity to start a new chapter without leaving, without losing everything she knew. When she left the office, a smile suddenly lit up her face. It was the right decision, after all. Clara felt a strange sense of relief when she left Mr. Davies' office. The decision to stay in the city and accept the new position didn't feel as heavy as it had yesterday. Perhaps this was the chance she had been looking for. It just came in a way she hadn't expected. Still, a slight anxiety lingered in her soul. Was this the right decision? She went up to the bar counter, where the first coffee orders for the rare morning visitors were already being prepared. Sarah, standing by the coffee machine, noticed Clara and winked. "Well, didn't you go?" she asked with a smile, handing a cup of cappuccino to a customer. Clara sighed, took an empty glass and absent-mindedly began fiddling with it. "No, Sarah. Everything changed. I stayed. And guess what? Mr. Davies offered me the manager position, just like that." Sarah froze, a cup in her hands, her eyes wide. "Manager? Are you kidding me?" She couldn't hide her surprise. "And you accepted?" "Yes," Clara nodded, smiling. "I didn't expect it myself, but I decided to try. Maybe this is the chance I was thinking about." Sarah put down the cup and leaned against the counter. "Wow, you're amazing. That's great. So you don't have to leave, and you found a better job right here. Honestly, I can't believe Mr. Davies suddenly decided to offer this." Clara shrugged. "Yes, it's strange. Maybe it's because I saved his son." She chuckled, though a slight note of doubt was in her voice. "But he could have just said thank you." Sarah laughed. "Well, you know, that's not how it works for people like him. It's important for them to do everything with some benefit. But you got lucky." Don't worry, you'll handle it. Especially since you know the restaurant. Clara nodded, though thoughts still churned inside her about how quickly her life had changed. The job she knew had turned into a new challenge. Now she needed not only to take orders and serve dishes, but also to oversee all processes, help with problem-solving, and plan the establishment's operations. "All right," Sarah said, drying her hands. "We'll call you boss now. Just don't forget we're still here with you." Clara smiled back, feeling a slight thrill about what awaited her. Her new status suddenly became a reality. She was a little scared, but also excited. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she believed she could manage. The next day, Clara entered the restaurant with a new sense of responsibility. She habitually put on her apron, but everything felt different now. Something new hung in the air, whether it was the sense of importance of her new position or just the anticipation of change. Mr. Davies was already in his place, as usual. He was sitting at his desk, reviewing reports and documents. When Clara entered, he looked up and gestured for her to sit down. "So, ready for your new role?" he asked with a smile, handing her several folders. Clara, a little nervous, took them in her hands and opened them. "Yes, I am ready," she answered confidently, though her heart beat faster. "Excellent. First, I want you to look into these." Mr. Davies pointed to the papers. "These are the reports on supplies and expenses for the last month. We need a fresh perspective on the situation. Then we'll discuss how we'll move forward." Clara nodded and focused on the work. She had to learn new things, dealing with documents and schedules, but she felt she was coping. It was difficult, but at the same time, captivating. The entire day was spent on site visits, meetings with suppliers, and discussing business expansion plans. As evening approached, she caught herself thinking that for the first time in a long time, she felt needed. Not just another waitress, but someone who genuinely influenced what was happening. This gave her strength, but as she was closing the restaurant, Clara heard a quiet voice behind her. "Clara, can I have a word with you for a minute?" She turned and saw Mr. Davies standing by his office door, looking slightly nervous. "Is something wrong?" she asked, approaching him. Mr. Davies sighed and sat down at the desk. "There's one thing I should have told you earlier, but the right moment never seemed to come." Clara frowned, feeling her heart tighten in anticipation of something important. "What is it?" she asked, sitting down across from him. Mr. Davies paused before speaking. "I have to tell you something about your mother." Clara froze. The question of her mother had always been a painful subject for her. She knew little about her. Her mother died when Clara was only 3, and her father also passed away young, so she was raised by her grandmother. Nevertheless, she remembered little about her mother, only rare stories from her grandmother, and a couple of old photographs of a serious-looking woman. Therefore, Mr. Davies' words struck her like a bolt from the blue. "My mother," Clara repeated, not believing her ears. "What do you mean?" Mr. Davies sighed and looked as if starting this conversation was difficult for him too. "Yes, Clara, your mother. We knew each other. Even more, we opened this restaurant together when it was just... She was my partner. And then everything changed." Clara felt her legs buckle, but she held herself together. She had never heard anything like this. Although this explained a lot, her head was spinning. Mr. Davies closed his eyes, as if collecting his thoughts, and then continued. "It was complicated. Your mother and I were good friends and colleagues, but at some point our paths diverged. She left when you were still very small. I wanted to stay in touch with her, but she decided to leave and cut off all contact. And then I heard about her death. It was hard for me, just like for you. I thought it would be better for you if I didn't stir up the past." Clara sat there, digesting what she had heard. She couldn't believe that all this time she had been working next to a man who was connected to her mother. He wasn't just the restaurant owner. He knew her mother, worked with her, was a part of her life that she knew nothing about. "Why now?" Clara barely managed to utter. "Why did you decide to tell me only now?" Mr. Davies sighed and shook his head. "When I saw you save my son, I suddenly realized I couldn't hide it anymore. You deserve to know the truth. I should have said it sooner, but I kept putting it off. You have become more than just an employee to me, and I feel responsible for your destiny. I had to tell you who you are and what place you hold in this story." Clara felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't know how to react to such a revelation. Everything in her head was a mess: anger, pain, relief. It all covered her in a wave. She tried not to show how much this affected her, but everything was churning inside. "You knew my mother," she said slowly, "and you kept silent all this time." "Yes," Mr. Davies answered quietly. "But understand, I thought it would be better for everyone. I didn't want to hurt you." Clara looked at him. His face, usually hard and cold, now looked tired and devastated. He regretted not telling her sooner. "I need time," Clara said, getting up from the chair. "I don't know what to say right now." Mr. Davies nodded. "Of course, I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here if you want to talk." Clara left the office and headed for the exit, unable to believe what she had just heard. She didn't know how she would cope with this discovery, but one thing was clear. Her life had changed again. Clara stepped outside, feeling the cool evening air somewhat calming her shattered thoughts. Mr. Davies's revelation still hadn't fully sunk in. He knew her mother was a part of her life, but had kept silent about it all these years. It was hard for her to accept, but she knew she had to get to the bottom of this story. A few days later, Clara returned to the restaurant. She felt she couldn't just leave this story without an explanation. She wanted to know more. When she knocked on Mr. Davies' office, he invited her in. "Clara, I'm glad you came," he began, looking at her with concern in his eyes. Clara sat down across from him and looked at him directly. "Mr. Davies, I want you to tell me more about my mother. Who was she? How did you know her? I knew nothing about her for so many years, and now you say you were close to her. I need to know." He sighed, his shoulders slightly dropping, and was silent for a second, as if weighing what to say. "I understand this is important to you, and you deserve to know the truth. But everything in its own time, Clara. It's not a simple story, and I promise to tell you everything. But for now, let's start with what we have now. We'll handle this together. You are the manager of this restaurant, and I'm confident that a better future awaits you here." Clara nodded. She understood that Mr. Davies was willing to open up about her mother's story, and in doing so, she would learn a little more about her than she knew. "All right," she replied, "but I'll be waiting. I want to know everything about my mother when the time comes." Mr. Davies looked at her with respect. "I promise, Clara." With that, their conversation ended. Clara felt a sense of relief. She didn't have to rush for answers. She knew that everything would soon become clear. In the meantime, she had a new challenge, the job of manager, a new role in the restaurant, and the opportunity to move forward. And she was ready to accept this challenge. "Let's get to work," she said with a smile. Mr. Davies nodded, and they returned to the restaurant's business. There was a lot of work ahead, but Clara knew that her life had changed, and despite all the difficulties, she finally felt that she belonged.